$1 million. The voice rang out across the lavish wedding, silencing all 300 guests. I stood there in a cheap navy blue dress, clutching my sobbing 7-year-old son, while my sister auctioned us off like a charity item. My name is Eleanor Griffin. 7 years ago, I was the daughter-in-law cast out by my husband's powerful family. 3 years ago, I lost my father, the only person in my family who ever truly loved me. And that night, at my sister's wedding, I was turned into a joke for 300 of the wealthiest people in town. But that was also the night I learned the truth. My father had left his entire multi-million-dollar estate to me and my son. And the man who just bid $1 million? He brought the real will, with proof that my mother and sister had stolen everything. Before I tell you what happened next, let me know where you're watching from in the comments below. Hit like and subscribe if you've ever had to stand up for your family. Because trust me, you won't want to miss what's coming. This isn't just a story about money or revenge. It's the story of how a single mom went from pouring coffee to becoming a CEO. And more importantly, about the power of forgiveness when you have every reason to destroy. Winter came early to Boston that year. I remember standing at the coffee shop window watching the November snow fall like tiny promises of change I couldn't yet understand. My breath fogged the glass as I wiped it clean for the third time that afternoon. The Maple Street Cafe wasn't much. Just a small corner shop in a neighborhood where people drove cars worth more than I'd make in 5 years. But it was warm, and Janet, the owner, understood what it meant to be a single mother. "Eleanor, why don't you head out early today?" Janet's voice pulled me from my thoughts. "Noah gets out of school soon, doesn't he?" I turned to her, grateful as always for her kindness. "Thank you, Janet. I really appreciate it." "Go on," she said, waving me off with a smile. "That boy needs his mama." I hung up my apron and grabbed my worn coat from the back room. 7 years. That's how long I'd been doing this dance. Work, pick up Noah, homework, dinner, bed. Repeat. 7 years since David died in that car accident, leaving me with a 6-month-old baby and a heart so broken I thought it would never heal. But you know what? Hearts are funny things. They mend themselves when you're not looking, especially when you have a 7-year-old boy who thinks you hung the moon. The walk to our apartment was only 15 minutes, but the cold made it feel longer. I stopped at the mailbox, my fingers already numb as I fumbled with the key. Bills, ads, and then something different. An elegant cream envelope with my name written in gold calligraphy. I knew what it was before I even opened it. Inside our small apartment, I set the envelope on the kitchen counter and stared at it while I waited for the kettle to boil. The invitation was exactly what I expected. Victoria was getting married. My younger sister, the golden child, the one who could do no wrong in our mother's eyes, was marrying Richard Hamilton. Of course she was. Richard's family owned half the commercial real estate in Boston. It was a match made in society page heaven. You and Noah Griffin are cordially invited to celebrate the union of Victoria Griffin and Richard Hamilton. I read the words 3 times before I heard Noah's key in the door. "Mom!" He burst in like sunshine, all energy and gap-toothed grins. "Guess what? I got 100 on my math test." I scooped him up, invitation forgotten for the moment. "That's amazing, baby. I'm so proud of you." Ms. Anderson said I was the only one who got all the word problems right. He continued, his dark eyes, David's eyes, sparkling with pride. We settled into our evening routine. Homework at the small dining table, mac and cheese for dinner, the fancy kind with real cheese because it was Friday. And then Noah found the invitation while I was washing dishes. "What's this, Mom?" He held up the card, sounding out the fancy script. "Aunt Victoria's getting married?" My hands stilled in the soapy water. "Yes, baby, she is." "Can we go?" His excitement was immediate and pure. "I've never been to a wedding." I dried my hands slowly, buying time. How could I explain to my 7-year-old that we were the family members nobody wanted to see? That his grandmother, Martha Griffin, had barely spoken to us since my father died 3 years ago? That Victoria only invited us because it would look bad if she didn't? "I don't know, Noah. It's going to be very fancy and—" "Please, Mom." He looked up at me with those eyes that were so much like his father's it hurt. I want to see Aunt Victoria in a wedding dress. And maybe Grandma will be there? The hope in his voice broke me. Despite everything, Noah still believed in family. He still thought that blood meant something, that surely his grandmother and aunt loved him even if they never showed it. Okay, I heard myself saying, we'll go. That night, after Noah was asleep, I sat in our tiny living room with my father's photo album. William Griffin had been many things. A successful businessman, a demanding boss, a complicated husband. But to me, he'd been the parent who saw me. Really saw me. While Mom fawned over Victoria's beauty and social graces, Dad would sit with me while I did homework, praising my good grades and practical mind. "You're the smart one, Eleanor," he'd say. "Don't let anyone tell you different." When he died of a heart attack 3 years ago, I lost more than a father. I lost my advocate, my defender, the one person in the family who made me feel like I belonged. The will reading had been swift and simple. Everything to Martha, with the understanding that she would take care of the girls. Victoria got her trust fund topped up immediately. I got nothing. Mom said it was because I was independent and didn't need help. The next morning, I called Victoria. My hands shook as I dialed, but I kept my voice steady. "Victoria, it's Eleanor. Thank you for the invitation. Noah and I will be there." The silence on the other end lasted just long enough to be insulting. "Oh, how nice. Mother will be pleased." We both knew that was a lie. "Just remember," she continued, her voice taking on that particular tone I knew so well, "it's going to be quite formal. Richard's family is very particular about appearances. You do have something appropriate to wear, don't you?" The implication hung heavy between us. Poor Eleanor, the coffee shop worker. Poor Eleanor, the single mother. Poor Eleanor, who couldn't possibly have anything suitable for high society. "We'll be appropriately dressed," I said quietly. "Well, good. The ceremony is at 2, but do try to arrive early. We wouldn't want you sneaking in late and causing a distraction." After I hung up, I stood in my bedroom doorway looking at my meager closet. She was right, of course. I had nothing suitable for a society wedding, but I'd figure it out. I always did. I thought about calling the whole thing off a dozen times over the next few weeks. But every time I almost picked up the phone, Noah would mention the wedding. He was so excited, marking off days on the calendar, asking questions about what weddings were like, wondering if there would be cake. "Do you think Grandma will dance with me?" he asked one night. I tucked his covers tighter around him. "I don't know, baby. We'll see." "I miss Grandpa," he said suddenly. "Do you think he would have danced with me?" "Oh, Noah." I smoothed his hair back. "Grandpa would have danced with you all night long, and he would have." Despite his gruff exterior, Dad had a soft spot for Noah that surprised everyone. In those last months before his heart attack, he'd started visiting more often, bringing Noah books and toys, sitting on our floor to play trains even though his knees protested. "This boy is special, Eleanor," he'd told me during what turned out to be his last visit. "Don't let anyone make him feel otherwise." Looking back now, I wonder if he knew something, if he sensed what was coming. But at the time, I just thought he was being a doting grandfather. The week before the wedding, I did something I'd sworn I wouldn't do. I dipped into my emergency fund, the money I'd been saving in case the car broke down or Noah needed medical care, and bought us clothes. Nothing fancy, nothing that would compete with the designer gowns and custom suits I knew would fill that ballroom. Just a simple navy dress for me, and a neat little suit for Noah. "Do I look handsome, Mom?" Noah asked, modeling his outfit in the department store mirror. "The handsomest," I assured him, even as my heart broke a little at the price tag. Winter had settled over Boston like a thick blanket by then, and I knew that whatever happened at that wedding, our lives were about to change. I just had no idea how much. The morning of the wedding, I woke at 5. Not because I needed to. We didn't have to leave until noon, but because my stomach was in knots. I made coffee and sat at our small kitchen table, watching the snow fall outside. It was like the whole city was dressed in white for Victoria's big day. Noah found me there an hour later, rubbing sleep from his eyes. "Is it time yet?" "Not yet, baby. Want some breakfast?" We made pancakes together, him standing on a chair to reach the counter, carefully measuring ingredients like it was the most important job in the world. He chattered about school, about his friend Marcus who could burp the alphabet, about everything except the wedding. But I could see it in the way he kept glancing at his suit hanging on the door. He was nervous too. "Mom," he asked as we cleaned up, "why don't we see Grandma and Aunt Victoria very much?" I'd been dreading this question. How do you explain adult cruelty to a child who still believes in the goodness of people? It's complicated, Noah. Sometimes families grow apart. But we're still family, right? Always, I said, hugging him tight, no matter what. The truth was messier than that, of course. The growing apart had started long before Dad died, maybe even before David's accident. I'd always been the odd one out in the Griffin family. Victoria was beautiful, charming, everything mother wanted in a daughter. She knew how to work a room, how to make people feel special while keeping them at arm's length. She'd gone to the right schools, joined the right sororities, dated the right boys. I'd been different, quieter, more interested in books than parties. I'd met David at the community college where we were both taking night classes, him studying to be an electrician, me working on my business degree. Mother had been horrified. Victoria had laughed behind her hand at family dinners while David tried to make conversation about baseball or his work. Only Dad had welcomed him. "He's a good man," he'd said after that first awkward Sunday dinner. "He works hard and he loves you. That's what matters." When we got married at City Hall with just Dad and David's brother as witnesses, Mother didn't come. She was sick that day. Victoria was traveling, but Dad was there, slipping me an envelope with a check that kept us afloat those first few months. Then David died, and everything changed. I was 22, suddenly alone with a baby, drowning in grief and bills. The life insurance barely covered the funeral. I'd had to drop out of school, take any job I could find. Pride kept me from asking for help for months. But when Noah got sick and I couldn't afford the medicine, I finally called home. "You made your choices, Eleanor," Mother had said, her voice cold over the phone. "I told you marrying beneath you would end badly." "He's your grandson," I'd said, Noah crying in the background. "He's sick." There was a long pause, then, "I'll speak to your father." Dad showed up an hour later with medicine, groceries, and enough cash to cover the next month's rent. He didn't say much, just held Noah while I cried. After that, he came by when he could. Always when Mother was at her bridge club or Victoria was at some society function. He'd play with Noah, slip me money, remind me that I was stronger than I knew. "Your mother and sister," he'd said once, watching Noah stack blocks. "They see the world a certain way. They can't help it. But don't let them make you small, Eleanor. You're worth 10 of those society people they're so impressed by." I believed him. Right up until the will reading, I believed him. Getting ready for the wedding, I tried to push those memories away. I helped Noah with his tie, combed his hair until it lay flat. A losing battle. He'd inherited David's cowlick. And then got myself ready. The navy dress looked better than I'd expected. Simple, but elegant. I even put on makeup, something I rarely bothered with anymore. "You look pretty, Mom," Noah said, and my heart squeezed. "Thank you, baby. You ready for this?" He nodded, then hesitated. "Mom, what if nobody talks to us?" "Then we'll talk to each other," I said, forcing a smile. "We're a team, remember?" The taxi ride to the hotel felt like traveling to another world. The Regent Plaza was the kind of place I'd only seen from the outside. All gleaming marble and doormen in uniforms nicer than anything in my closet. Noah's eyes went wide as we walked through the lobby. "It's like a castle," he whispered. The wedding coordinator, a sharp-faced woman with a clipboard, looked us up and down when we gave our names. "Griffin? Yes, you're at table 17. She didn't need to say it was the table by the kitchen doors. I could tell by her tone. The ceremony space was breathtaking. White roses everywhere. Gold ribbons draping the chairs. A string quartet playing softly. We slipped into seats in the back row, trying to be invisible. I spotted Mother at the front, resplendent in champagne silk, holding court with Richard's parents. She didn't look our way. Other guests filed in, all perfectly coiffed and jeweled. I recognized some faces from the society pages, others from long ago family events when Dad was alive and we were still pretending to be a united family. A few did double takes when they saw me, whispering behind their hands. "Is that Eleanor Griffin? I thought she disappeared after William died." "Is that her son? Poor thing." I kept my eyes forward, my hand on Noah's knee to keep him from fidgeting. He was transfixed by the spectacle, the music, the sheer grandeur of it all. When the music changed and everyone stood, Victoria appeared like something out of a magazine. Her dress probably cost more than I made in a year. Layers of silk and lace, a train that seemed to go on forever, diamonds at her throat and ears. She was radiantly beautiful, every inch the society bride. "She looks like a princess," Noah breathed. She did. And as she passed our row without a glance, I wondered if princesses ever thought about their servant sisters in the back row. The ceremony was elegant and soulless. Victoria and Richard exchanged vows that sounded like they'd been written by a lawyer. The kiss was perfunctory. The applause was polite. And then we were all filing out, heading to the reception ballroom on the top floor. I should have known then. Should have felt the trap closing. But I was too focused on Noah, on making sure he was okay, on surviving the next few hours. We found our table, 17, just as promised, tucked in a corner with a clear view of absolutely nothing important. The other guests at our table were distant relatives and plus ones who didn't quite fit anywhere else. They made polite conversation at first, asking about Noah, about what I did for work. The moment I mentioned the coffee shop, the conversation died. "How nice," one woman said, the same way you'd compliment a child's finger painting. Noah didn't notice. He was too amazed by the food, course after course of things he'd never tried before. Lobster bisque, filet mignon, vegetables I couldn't even name. He tried everything, eyes wide with wonder. "Can we come to more weddings?" he asked, and despite everything, I laughed. "We'll see, baby." I watched Mother work the room, never coming within 20 feet of our table. Victoria and Richard held court at the head table, surrounded by their wedding party. All thin, beautiful people who looked like they'd stepped out of a catalog. And then the speeches started. Richard's best man went first, telling stories about Harvard and summers on the Cape that might as well have been dispatches from Mars for all I could relate to them. Then Victoria's maid of honor, gushing about shopping trips to Paris and charity galas. I tuned most of it out, focusing on making sure Noah ate something besides cake. Then the music changed. The lights dimmed, except for a spotlight on the head table. Victoria stood, microphone in hand, and my stomach dropped. "Thank you all so much for being here," she began, her voice honey-sweet. "Richard and I are so grateful to share this special day with all of you, our family and dearest friends." Applause. She waited for it to die down, and something in her smile made my skin prickle. "You know, family is such an interesting thing," she continued. "We don't choose them, do we? They're just there, like furniture you inherit from your grandparents. Some pieces fit beautifully in your life, and others you keep in the basement." Nervous laughter rippled through the room. My hand found Noah's under the table. "But tonight, I want to do something special. I want to acknowledge all our family, even the pieces we usually keep hidden away." She turned, and the spotlight swung wild before landing directly on our table. On us. "Ladies and gentlemen, my sister Eleanor and her son Noah." Every head in the room turned. 300 pairs of eyes, all staring. Noah shrank against me. "Stand up, Eleanor!" Victoria called out, her voice bright with false cheer. "Don't be shy." I stayed seated, but the spotlight stayed on us, and the silence grew uncomfortable. Finally, Noah whispered, "Mom?" And I knew we had no choice. We stood. "There we go!" Victoria clapped, and others joined in uncertainly. Now, as you can see, my sister lives a very different life from most of us here. She works in a coffee shop. Isn't that quaint? A griffin serving lattes. The laughter was fuller now, meaner. I felt Noah trembling beside me. And young Noah here, my nephew, growing up without a father. Such a tragedy. Some of you might remember when Eleanor married that... What was he again, Eleanor? An electrician? "Mom," Noah whispered, tears in his voice. "Yes, an electrician. Father was so disappointed, but Eleanor always did like to go her own way. And now here they are, my working-class relatives. It's like having our very own charity case in the family." I started to sit, to pull Noah down with me, but Victoria wasn't done. "Which brings me to tonight's special entertainment." She gestured to the band, who struck up what sounded like auction music. A charity auction, right here, right now. My blood turned to ice. What am I auctioning, you ask? Why, a unique opportunity. One lucky bidder can take home their very own single mother and fatherless child. Think of it, your own personal reminder of how fortunate you are. They can serve coffee at your parties, and little Noah can, I don't know, what do poor children do? Polish shoes? The room erupted. Some people laughed, others looked uncomfortable. A few seemed genuinely shocked, but no one stopped her. Shall we start the bidding at, let's say $1,000? Do I hear 1,000? Victoria. Richard touched her arm, looking uncertain. She shook him off. Come now, don't be shy. They're house-trained, I promise. That's when Mother stood up. For a wild moment, I thought she was going to stop this. Going to remember that I was her daughter, that Noah was her grandson. But then she took the microphone from Victoria, and her smile was worse than my sister's. Let me help, darling, she said. I think you're starting too high. After all, we should be realistic about their value. Let's start at $0. She looked directly at me as she said it. Because honestly, I can't imagine anyone would pay actual money for them. But perhaps someone feeling particularly charitable? Noah was crying now, silent tears streaming down his face. I couldn't breathe, couldn't think. The laughter felt like physical blows, each one pushing me smaller and smaller. Mom, Noah whispered, please, can we go? Yes, we could go. We could walk out right now, leave these horrible people to their horrible party. I started to move, my arm around Noah. $1 million. The voice came from the back of the room, clear, calm, completely serious. The laughter died instantly. Every head swiveled. The spotlight operator, confused, swung the light wildly before finding the speaker. He was tall, distinguished-looking, with silver-touched hair and an impeccably cut suit. He walked forward with unhurried confidence, and something about him seemed familiar, though I couldn't place it. I'm sorry? Victoria laughed nervously. This is just a joke. I said $1 million. He reached the center of the room. I'll pay $1 million for Ms. Eleanor Griffin and her son. Though I must say the word buy is inappropriate. You can't buy people. You can only recognize their value. And their value is far above anything anyone in this room could afford. Mother's face had gone white. Who are you? The man smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. James Morrison. I was your husband's attorney, Martha. His real attorney, for matters he didn't trust to the family lawyers. The silence was deafening. I sank back into my chair, pulling Noah with me as my legs gave out. This is ridiculous, Victoria said, but her voice shook. You can't just interrupt a wedding, make a scene, humiliate family members for sport. James's voice was steel wrapped in silk. You're right, one shouldn't do such things. Yet here we are. He reached into his jacket and pulled out an envelope. I had hoped to do this privately, but since you've chosen to make a spectacle of Eleanor and Noah, perhaps it's fitting that everyone hear the truth. Get out, Mother snarled. I'll have security. You'll do nothing, James said calmly, because what I have to say concerns the last will and testament of William Griffin, his real will, the one you've been hiding for 3 years. My heart stopped. Around us, guests leaned in, the drama too delicious to resist. Furthermore, James continued, opening the envelope, I have here documentation of every fraudulent transaction you and Victoria have made using Griffin Company funds, every forged signature, every diverted account. You're lying, Victoria said, but all the color had drained from her face. James smiled that cold smile again. Am I? Then you won't mind if Judge Harrison, who I believe is seated at table 12, reviews these documents? An older man I vaguely recognized raised his hand in acknowledgement. The murmur that ran through the crowd was like electricity. But perhaps, James said, his voice carrying easily through the room, we should start with William's letter, the one he wrote to Eleanor and Noah, the one he asked me to read when the time was right. He looked at me then, and his eyes were kind. I believe that time is now. James Morrison stood in the center of that glittering ballroom like a man who'd waited 3 years for this moment. Which, I would learn, he had. Before I read William's letter, he said, his voice carrying to every corner of the room. Let me paint a picture. 3 years ago, a man realized he was dying. His heart was failing, and he knew he had perhaps months. This man had 2 daughters and a grandson he adored. But he also had a wife who'd shown her true colors, and a younger daughter who'd learned too well at her mother's knee. Mother stood frozen, her champagne glass forgotten in her hand. Victoria had sunk into her chair, Richard staring at her like he'd never seen her before. "This man came to me," James continued, "not to the family lawyers who'd served the Griffins for decades. Why? Because he'd discovered something that broke his heart. His wife and younger daughter were already planning for his death, already moving money, changing documents, preparing to cut his older daughter and grandson out of everything." "That's slander," Mother found her voice. "I'll sue you for every penny." "With what money, Martha?" James asked mildly. "The money you stole from the company? The accounts you've been draining? Oh yes, I have 3 years of bank records. 3 years of evidence. Did you really think William would leave his daughter and grandson unprotected?" He pulled out a single sheet of paper. "But I'm getting ahead of myself. First, the letter." The room was so quiet I could hear my own heartbeat. Noah had stopped crying, staring at James with wide eyes. "My dearest Eleanor and Noah," James read. And at the sound of those words in my father's voice, I felt tears start. If you're hearing this, then James has kept his promise, and the truth is finally being told. First, let me say how sorry I am. Sorry that I couldn't protect you while I lived. Sorry that you've had to endure what I know Martha and Victoria have put you through. But mostly, sorry that I was too much of a coward to confront them myself. James paused, letting the words sink in. When he continued, his voice was gentler. "Eleanor, you were always the best of us. Kind where your mother was cruel. Honest where your sister was false. Strong where I was weak. When you married David, I saw how happy he made you, how real your love was. Your mother called it common. I called it beautiful." I was crying now, not caring who saw. Noah reached up and wiped my tears with his small hand, just like I'd done for him so many times. "When David died, I watched you grieve and rebuild. I watched you raise Noah with such love and strength. And I watched your mother and sister turn their backs on you, punish you for not being like them. It shamed me. But I was already sick by then, already running out of time, and I made a choice." The letter rustled as James turned to the next page. "I chose to let them think they'd won. I let them believe the will they saw, leaving everything to Martha, was real. But it wasn't. My real will, my legal will, properly witnessed and notarized, tells a different story." Mother made a sound like a wounded animal. Several guests had their phones out recording everything. "To my wife, Martha Griffin, I leave the mandated spousal minimum and not a penny more. She knows what she did. To my daughter, Victoria Griffin, I leave nothing. She has taken enough already. To my daughter, Eleanor Griffin, and my grandson, Noah Griffin, I leave everything else. The company, the properties, the investments, everything." The gasp that went through the room was like a wave. I couldn't process it, couldn't breathe. "But more than money," James continued reading, "I leave you the truth. Your mother and sister have been stealing from the company for years. They've been preparing to destroy you since long before I died. Every cruel word, every moment of exclusion, every humiliation. It was all part of their plan to make you disappear, to make you small enough that no one would question when you got nothing." He looked up from the letter, his eyes finding Mother and Victoria. "They almost succeeded, but I knew my Eleanor. I knew you would survive whatever they did. And I knew that when the time was right, James would make sure you got what was yours." "This is fake!" Victoria shrieked, standing so fast her chair toppled. "This is all lies! The will was executed 3 years ago. Legal. Binding." "Was it?" James pulled out another document. "Because I have here the real will, dated 6 months after the one you filed. Witnessed by Judge Harrison himself, as well as Dr. Margaret Chen, William's physician, both of whom are here tonight by happy coincidence." The judge stood. "I can confirm I witnessed William Griffin's final will. He was of sound mind and very clear about his wishes." An elegant woman at another table also stood. "As his doctor, I can confirm the same. William knew exactly what he was doing." Richard's father grabbed his son's arm. "We're leaving. Now." "But Dad—" "Now." The older Hamilton was already moving. "This family is poison. The engagement is over." Richard looked at Victoria, and I saw the moment he realized he'd been fooled. Without a word, he followed his father out. Victoria screamed after him, but James wasn't done. "There's more in the letter," he said calmly. "Shall I continue?" "Please," I whispered. It was the first word I'd spoken since this began. "The company is yours, Eleanor. But I know you never wanted it. You wanted to finish your degree to build something of your own. So I've set aside funds for that. For you to go back to school, to become whatever you dream of. For Noah to have every opportunity. For both of you to live without fear or want." He folded the letter carefully. "There's more. Personal things. Things that should be read in private, not in front of people who treat family pain as entertainment." He looked around the room with disgust. "Though I think William would appreciate the irony. You all came here to watch Eleanor be humiliated. Instead, you're witnesses to justice." "I'll fight this," Mother said, her voice low and dangerous. "I'll fight this with every—" "With what?" James cut her off. "The lawyers you can't afford once the accounts are frozen? The connections who are already calculating how to distance themselves from you? Look around, Martha. Your audience is already choosing sides, and it's not yours." He was right. The whispers had started. The social calculations. Mother and Victoria had committed the ultimate sin in their world. They'd been exposed as frauds. James walked over to our table. Up close, I could see the kindness in his eyes, the protective anger on our behalf. "Eleanor," he said gently. "Noah, I'm sorry this happened here, like this. William wanted me to wait, to let them expose themselves. He said when the time came, I'd know. When I heard about tonight, about what they planned..." He shook his head. "I knew." "Is it true?" I asked, my voice barely working. "All of it?" "Every word. You're the sole heir to Griffin Industries. The houses, the investments, all of it. Your mother and sister have been living on stolen money for 3 years. But I never wanted..." "I know." He smiled sadly. "Your father knew too. That's why he made provisions. You don't have to run the company if you don't want to. But it's yours. No one can take it from you again." Noah tugged on my dress. "Mom, does this mean Grandpa really did remember us?" I pulled him close. "Yes, baby, Grandpa remembered us." "Then why did he let them be mean to us for so long?" It was James who answered. "Because sometimes, Noah, you have to let people show who they really are. Your grandfather wanted to make sure that when the truth came out, no one could deny it. Do you understand?" Noah thought about it with that serious expression he got when working through a problem. "Like in my stories, when the bad guy has to confess?" Exactly like that. Around us, the reception was dissolving into chaos. Guests were leaving, staff were hovering uncertainly, and somewhere in the background, Victoria was having what sounded like a complete breakdown. "What happens now?" I asked. James checked his watch. "Now? Now we leave. I have a car waiting. Tomorrow, we start the legal process. Your mother and sister will be served with papers. The accounts will be frozen. Every penny they stole will be returned. And tonight? Tonight, you and Noah go home. Order pizza. Watch a movie. Be a family." He helped me stand, then picked up Noah like he weighed nothing. "You've performed for these people long enough." As we walked through that ballroom, past the scattered chairs and abandoned champagne, past the people who'd laughed at our humiliation, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. The call came at 7 the next morning. I'd barely slept, replaying the wedding disaster over and over, wondering if it had all been some elaborate dream. But when I saw James Morrison's name on my phone, I knew it was real. "Eleanor, I hope I didn't wake you." "No, I was up." I looked over at Noah, still sleeping peacefully, one arm thrown over his stuffed dinosaur. "Is everything... Did it really happen?" "It did. And I'm afraid I need to see you today. Can you come to my office? Bring Noah. I have a colleague who can watch him while we talk." 3 hours later, I sat in a leather chair that probably cost more than my car, staring at documents that made my head spin. James's office was all dark wood and old books, the kind of place that whispered of serious money and even more serious power. "The transfer will take time," he explained, sliding papers across the mahogany desk. "But effective immediately. You have access to a living account. The company continues to run. William made sure to put good people in place. You don't have to make any decisions about that today." "I don't understand." I said for maybe the 10th time. Why didn't he tell me? Why let me struggle for 3 years? James leaned back, choosing his words carefully. Your father was a complicated man. He loved you deeply, but he needed to know. Know what? That you were who he believed you to be. That you would raise Noah with love despite having nothing. That you wouldn't become bitter or cruel. That given the choice between easy money and hard integrity, you'd choose integrity every time. He tested me. The hurt in my voice was sharp. He protected you, James corrected gently. If Martha and Victoria had known about the real Will, what do you think they would have done? They were already capable of cruelty. Desperation would have made them dangerous. I thought about that. About what Mother might have done if she'd known millions were at stake. The thought made me shudder. Besides, James continued, he left me with very specific instructions. If you had come to me, if you had asked for help beyond what you truly needed for Noah, I was to give it immediately. But you never did. You never asked for anything. I asked Mom once, when Noah was sick, and William came, didn't he? That wasn't Martha's decision. That was him, watching, always watching. We spent the next 2 hours going through everything. The company assets, the properties, not just the family estate, but investment properties all over Boston. The portfolios, the trust funds set aside for Noah's education. It was dizzying, overwhelming. There's something else, James said finally. Your mother and sister. They've been served this morning. Eviction notices for the properties they're living in. They're all company-owned. Asset freezing orders for all accounts. They have 72 hours to return what they stole or face criminal charges. Criminal charges? Fraud, embezzlement, forged signatures on company documents. Your father documented everything, Eleanor. He gave them 3 years to dig their own graves, and they obliged. I thought I should feel something. Satisfaction, maybe? Justice? But all I felt was tired. What will happen to them? That depends on them. If they cooperate, return the money, they'll avoid jail. They'll have to start over with nothing, but they'll be free. If they fight, he shrugged. The evidence is overwhelming. When we left James's office, Noah's hand in mine, my phone had 17 missed calls. All from numbers I didn't recognize. The news was out, spreading through Boston society like wildfire. By evening, reporters had found our apartment. I kept the curtains drawn, the TV off, trying to maintain some normalcy for Noah. We ordered Chinese food and built a blanket fort in the living room. Mom, Noah said, looking serious over his lo mein, are we rich now? I guess we are, baby. But we're still us, right? We don't have to change? I pulled him close. We're still us, always. The next morning, there was a different car outside. A Mercedes with a driver who introduced himself as Thomas. Mr. Morrison arranged for me to be available whenever you need transportation, he explained. There are photographers. It might be safer. He was right. The moment we stepped outside, cameras appeared. Questions shouted from all directions. Eleanor, how does it feel to inherit millions? Did you know about the will? What are your plans for the company? Thomas efficiently got us to the car and away. Noah was wide-eyed, half scared and half excited. Are we famous, Mom? For today, I said. Tomorrow they'll find someone else to bother. But it wasn't just for today. The story had everything the media loved. Family drama, money, betrayal, redemption. The headlines were breathless. Single mother inherits fortune after public humiliation. The Griffin family scandal, 3 years of deception exposed. From coffee shop to CEO, Eleanor Griffin's stunning reversal. James had warned me it would be bad for a while. He assigned me a public relations person, a security team, lawyers to handle the transition. My small life exploded into something I didn't recognize. But the hardest part wasn't the media, or the sudden money, or even the learning curve of understanding what I'd inherited. The hardest part was the letters. They came by the dozens, from people I hadn't heard from in years. High school classmates who suddenly remembered how close we'd been. Distant relatives discovering family bonds. Everyone had a story, a connection, a reason why I should remember them. And then, on the 4th day, a different kind of letter. Hand-delivered by a courier who waited for a response. I recognized Victoria's handwriting immediately. Shaky, tear-stained, but still trying for elegance. Eleanor, I know you hate me. You have every right. But please, I'm begging you. I have nothing. The Hamiltons are suing me for the wedding costs. Mother won't speak to me. All our friends, they won't even take my calls. I'm not asking for forgiveness, just mercy. Your sister, Victoria. I stared at the letter for a long time. The sister who'd tried to auction me off like property, who'd laughed at my pain, who'd made Noah cry. What are you reading, Mom? Noah asked, climbing into my lap. A letter from Aunt Victoria. He was quiet for a moment, then, is she sorry for being mean? I think she's sorry she got caught. Noah considered this with 7-year-old wisdom. Grandpa used to say being sorry means you try to fix what you broke. Out of the mouths of babes, I called James. What's the minimum I have to give them, legally? Nothing. The will is clear, but you could choose to provide something, a living allowance, enough to start over. And if I do, then you're a better person than they deserve. That night, I sat at my kitchen table, the same table where I'd struggled over bills, where Noah did his homework, where we'd shared 1,000 simple meals, and I made a decision. Not for them, for me, for the person my father believed I was, for the mother I wanted Noah to see. I would give them enough. Not enough to live as they had, skating by on family money and connections, but enough to rent an apartment, buy food, have a chance to become actual people instead of parasites. The woman I'd been a week ago couldn't have afforded mercy, but I wasn't that woman anymore. 6 months. That's how long it took for my life to completely transform. 6 months of lawyers and accountants, of learning about portfolios and profit margins, of trying to understand how to be wealthy without losing myself. I did 3 things immediately. First, I went back to school. Not full-time. I had Noah to think about, but I enrolled in evening classes to finish my business degree. It felt like completing something my father had always wanted for me. Second, I promoted Janet to manage the coffee shop and made her a partner. She cried when I told her, hugging me so tight I could barely breathe. You don't have to do this, she said. Yes, I do. You gave me a job when I had nothing. You understood when I needed to leave early for Noah. This is just fair. Third, and most importantly, I established the William Griffin Foundation. Not just for single parents, though that was part of it. For anyone trying to rebuild after loss. Anyone who needed a hand up, not a handout. Noah helped me design the logo. His tongue stuck out in concentration as he drew. It should have a heart, he decided, because Grandpa had a good heart, even if it was sick. The first grant went to a woman named Sarah, a widow with 3 kids who was about to lose her home. I met her at the foundation office, really just a small space I'd rented downtown, nothing fancy. I don't understand, she kept saying, staring at the check. Why would you help me? You don't even know me. Because someone should have helped me, I said simply, and now I can pay it forward. The company ran itself, mostly. Dad had been right about putting good people in place. I attended board meetings, learned to read financial reports, made decisions when needed. But I refused to let it consume me the way it had consumed him. You're not what we expected, the CFO told me after one meeting. What did you expect? Someone more like your mother or sister. Then you're in luck, I said. I'm nothing like them. Mother and Victoria had taken my offer. They shared a 2-bedroom apartment in Brookline, far from their old neighborhood, but decent enough. I knew because I drove by sometimes, not stopping, just checking, making sure. They'd returned most of the money. Not all. Some had been spent, lost to their lavish lifestyle. But enough to avoid prosecution. They were working now, both of them. Mother at a high-end boutique where her knowledge of brands was actually useful. Victoria as an event planner, using her party skills for other people's celebrations. I hadn't spoken to them since the lawyers finished everything. Hadn't responded to Victoria's letters or Mother's one attempt to call. I wasn't ready. Maybe I'd never be ready. But Noah asked about them sometimes. Do you think Grandma is okay? He'd say at dinner. I'm sure she's fine, baby. Maybe she's different now. Maybe she's learned. Maybe, but I doubted it. James became a regular part of our lives. Dinners every week, baseball games with Noah, quiet evenings where we talked about my father, about forgiveness, about moving forward. He'd be proud, James said one night, after Noah had fallen asleep on the couch between us. William, he'd be so proud of how you've handled everything. Would he? I looked around our new house. Not a mansion, just a nice colonial in a good school district. I gave them money after everything they did. Exactly. You gave them what he couldn't. Mercy. He was too angry, too hurt by their betrayal. But you're stronger than he was. I don't feel strong. The strongest people rarely do. Noah stirred, mumbling something about dinosaurs. I smoothed his hair, thinking about strength and weakness, about the weight of inheritance that went beyond money. The call came on a Tuesday. I was reviewing grant applications when my assistant knocked. Eleanor, there's a woman here. She says she's your mother. My stomach clenched. I don't. She says it's about Noah, about something at his school. I was in the lobby in seconds. Mother stood there, looking smaller than I remembered. Older. Her clothes were nice but not designer. Her hair styled but not professionally. She looked like what she was, a woman starting over at 65. What about Noah? I demanded. He's fine, she said quickly. I'm sorry, I shouldn't have, but it was the only way I knew you'd see me. Then there's nothing wrong? You lied? I needed to talk to you. Her voice broke. Please, Eleanor, 5 minutes. I almost walked away, almost called security. But something in her face stopped me. A vulnerability I'd never seen before. 5 minutes. We sat in the conference room, formal as strangers, which I supposed we were. Noah's school had a grandparents' day, she said without preamble. Last week, I saw the announcement in the paper. I knew. Noah had been quiet about it, not asking if anyone would come. I'd sent James in my father's place, and Noah had been thrilled, but still. He doesn't have grandparents, I said coldly. His father's parents died before he was born. His grandfather died 3 years ago, and his grandmother made it clear she wanted nothing to do with him. I was wrong. The words came out in a rush. I was terrible, cruel, unforgivable. I know that. But Eleanor, I'm asking, begging, not for forgiveness, just for a chance to know my grandson. Why now? Because we have money? No. She met my eyes, and I saw tears. Real tears, not the calculated ones she used to produce. Because I have nothing but regret. Because I wake up every day knowing I threw away the only real family I had for, what? Pride? Society connections that vanished the moment the scandal broke? I lost everything, Eleanor. But the only loss that matters is you and Noah. You humiliated us. You tried to auction us like property. I know. She was openly crying now. I see it every night when I close my eyes. That beautiful boy crying because of what I did. My grandson and I made him cry. I wanted to stay angry. Anger was easier than this unexpected pain. Victoria put me up to it, she continued. Said it would be funny, but I could have stopped her. Should have. Instead, I made it worse. I showed everyone exactly what kind of person I am. And what kind is that? She wiped her eyes with a tissue. The kind who chose appearances over family, who valued the wrong things, who had to lose everything to understand what actually mattered. We sat in silence. I thought about Noah, about the questions he'd ask when he was older, about whether I wanted to be the mother who taught forgiveness or the one who held grudges. Supervised visits, I heard myself say. Once a month, in public places. If you miss one, if you say one cruel thing to him, if you make him cry even once, we're done forever. Hope bloomed in her eyes. You mean, I mean Noah deserves to know his grandmother, even if she doesn't deserve to know him. I stood. I'll call you with the details. Don't make me regret this. I won't, she whispered. I promise, Eleanor, I won't. As I walked her out, she turned back. He looks like William, around the eyes. That same kindness. Yeah, I said softly. He does. That night, I told Noah his grandmother wanted to see him. His whole face lit up. Really? She wants to meet me? She wants to try, I said carefully. We'll see how it goes. He hugged me tight. Maybe she was just sad before. Maybe now she can be happy. Maybe Noah had enough hope for all of us. A year. That's what it took for us to find our new normal. A year of growth and change, of learning who we were when we weren't defined by struggle. The coffee shop where I'd worked became our Saturday morning tradition. Janet would make Noah's hot chocolate with extra marshmallows while I helped during the morning rush, not because I needed to, but because I wanted to. It kept me grounded, reminded me where I'd come from. You know you don't have to do this, Janet would say, watching me wipe down tables. I know, that's why I can. The foundation had grown beyond my wildest dreams. What started as a small office with me and one assistant had become a full operation, helping dozens of families every month. Noah was our unofficial mascot, charming donors at fundraising events, his natural sweetness doing more than any speech could. My grandpa would have liked this, he'd tell people, and wallets would open like magic. Mother had kept her promise. Every visit was carefully orchestrated, usually at the park or the children's museum. She was different with Noah than she'd ever been with me, patient, attentive, genuinely interested in his thoughts and dreams. "She reads all my stories," Noah told me after one visit, "and she doesn't laugh at the silly parts." "That's good, baby." She said she was sorry she wasn't a good grandma before. I told her it's okay. Everyone makes mistakes. Everyone did, even me. Victoria reached out through Mother, a tentative olive branch. "Could we meet? Just the two of us?" I thought about it for weeks before agreeing. We met at a neutral restaurant, both of us awkward as teenagers. She looked good, not the polished perfection of before, but healthier somehow. Real. "Thank you for coming," she said. "I almost didn't." "I know." She twisted her napkin. "Eleanor, I need to say something. Not for you to forgive me, just to say it." I waited. "I was jealous," she said quietly. "My whole life I was jealous of you." "Of me?" I couldn't hide my shock. "You had everything." "I had things. You had Dad's respect. His real love." She looked up. "Do you know what he used to say? Victoria's beautiful, but Eleanor's brilliant. Victoria knows how to work a room, but Eleanor knows how to work. And I hated you for it. So you tried to destroy me?" "I tried to prove I was worth something too. That I could be clever and important." She laughed bitterly. "Instead, I proved him right. You were the one worth saving. We talked for 2 hours. Not reconciling exactly, but clearing the air. She told me about her new life, about learning to work for the first time, about the strange freedom of having nothing to prove. "I'm seeing someone," she admitted. "A teacher, public school. Mother nearly fainted when I told her. And he's kind. He doesn't care about my last name or what I used to have. He likes me for me, whatever that is." "That's good, Victoria, really." When we parted, she hugged me, quick, awkward, but genuine. "Maybe someday," she said. "When Noah's older, maybe I could meet him properly? Be a real aunt?" "Maybe," I said, and meant it. James and I had grown closer over the months. What started as legal guidance had become friendship, and then something more. He was there for Noah's school plays, for foundation galas, for quiet Sunday dinners. "I'm too old for you," he said one night after Noah was in bed. "You're 12 years older. That's not ancient. Your father was my friend." "He was, and he asked you to take care of us." I took his hand. "Maybe this is what that looks like." "Eleanor, I'm not a grieving widow anymore, James. I'm not a struggling single mother. I know who I am now, and I know what I want." What I wanted was a partner. Someone who understood our journey, who loved Noah like his own, who saw me for exactly who I was. What I wanted was the man who'd stood up in that ballroom and defended us when no one else would. Our wedding was small. Just Noah, Janet, a few close friends, and yes, Mother and Victoria. We held it in the botanical garden, surrounded by flowers and light. Noah was the ring bearer and took his job so seriously that everyone giggled when he marched down the aisle like a tiny soldier. "Do you think Grandpa's watching?" he whispered during the ceremony. "I know he is," I whispered back. After, at the reception, nothing like Victoria's spectacle, just good food and people who actually loved us, Mother pulled me aside. "You look beautiful," she said. "And happy." Really happy. "I am. I'm glad." She touched my hand briefly. "I know I have no right to say this, but I'm proud of you, Eleanor, for surviving us, for becoming this person despite us." "Not despite," I said, surprising myself, "because everything that happened, even the awful parts, led me here, and here is good." She smiled, wobbly but real. "Your father would be so pleased. James was always the son he wished he'd had. And now he is. Funny how things work out." Later, I found Noah in the garden, sitting on a bench with a piece of cake, watching the sunset. "You okay, buddy?" "Yeah." He scooted over to make room for me, careful not to get frosting on my dress. "Mom, can I ask you something?" "Always." "Do you think Dad, my first dad, would be okay with James being my new dad?" I pulled him close, this beautiful boy who'd been through so much and come out so kind. I think your first dad would be grateful that you have someone else to love you. Love isn't pie, baby. It doesn't run out. The more you give, the more there is. He thought about that. Like the foundation? The more we help, the more help there is? Exactly like that. As the evening wound down, I stood with James, watching Noah play with the other children. The setting sun painted everything gold, and I thought about cycles, about endings that were really beginnings. No regrets? James asked. None, you? Only that it took so long to get here. But the timing had been perfect, really. We'd both needed to become who we were meant to be. Me, learning my own strength. Him, honoring a promise that became something more. The will reading, I said suddenly. That first day in your office, you could have told me everything then. I could have. Why didn't you? He turned me to face him. Because you weren't ready. You were still defining yourself by what you'd lost. You needed to discover what you could build. And now? Now you know. You're not William Griffin's daughter or Martha's disappointment or Victoria's shadow. You're Eleanor, Foundation founder, mother, survivor, my wife. He smiled. The woman who gave mercy when she had every right to give justice. I gave both, I corrected, just in different measures. As if summoned by our conversation, Victoria appeared with her teacher boyfriend. She was nervous, I could tell, but determined. Eleanor, James, I wanted to introduce Michael properly. We shook hands, made a small talk. Michael was earnest and clearly besotted with Victoria. But more importantly, he seemed to see her clearly, flaws and all. Thank you, Victoria said quietly as they left, for letting us come, for everything. Everyone deserves a second chance, I said. Even us. The party ended as the stars came out. Noah fell asleep in the car, clutching his ring-bearer pillow. James drove while I watched the city lights blur past, thinking about journeys and destinations. 3 years ago, I'd stood in the snow, wondering how I'd survive. Now I knew the secret. You don't just survive. You transform. You take the broken pieces and build something new, something stronger. What are you thinking? James asked. About snow, I said. About beginnings disguised as endings. And about how Dad knew. Somehow he knew it would all work out. William was a smart man. He was. But I think he just believed in love. In the end, that's what saves us. Noah stirred in the back seat, mumbling about cake. James reached over and took my hand. Outside, Boston glittered with promise, and I smiled. We were home, and that's how I went from being a single mom serving coffee to becoming the CEO of $1 million company. Not because of luck, but because of a father who planned from beyond the grave to protect his daughter. Have you ever had to face betrayal from your own family? If you were in my shoes, would you choose revenge or forgiveness? Leave a comment below. I read every single one, and I truly want to hear your story. If this video touched your heart, don't forget to like and share it with someone who needs to hear that sometimes the worst beginnings lead to the most beautiful endings. And remember to subscribe so you don't miss the next real-life story that might just change your perspective.